Sure, we have lots to do. So most companies that start their lean journey looking at manufacturing get a lot of results, So quite often we have great increases in productivity, great increases in quality, great capacity gains. You know, you don't need to invest in another facility because you're able to liberate so much capacity. Improvement of space utilization, lead time reduction, inventory reduction, customer satisfaction because you're able to deliver products on time. So you have a lot of substantial gains. Most of them appear in the bottom line. So this is normal, this is okay. But if we only think that is enough, we have a big problem. We are only touching one small part of our value creation process in a company. And so I'm quoting here economist, European economist, famous for his innovative work in innovation, the first economist that really took a careful look at the innovation process and entrepreneurship also. And he said, improving the efficiency in the trolley car production will not lead you to the creation of the automobile. So if you just look at ways to improve the production of this product, I'm sure you can do a lot of improvements. I'm sure you can create a lot of growth opportunities for your company. But this is not enough. I'm sure you're not going to be able to survive if you don't really look at new ways of developing new products. This product will probably destroy your existing product and your existing processes. So it's fundamental to take a look at product development as part of your strategy. So if you're doing lean in the manufacturing, great. But as soon as possible, start taking a look at how you develop new products and how you develop new processes or improve your existing processes to enable them. If you don't do that, you are going to be in serious survival problems over time. New products bring a lot of good things. They bring improvement in sales. They bring improvements in cost. They bring improvements in profitability. They can create, improve your market share, can expand your reach in different market segments, and help you to sustain your competitiveness. Without this, it's very hard to compete in this very turbulent and changing environment that we are in. So I'm going to tell a little story about a Brazilian company that we've been in touch with over this past few years. I don't know how many are familiar with Embraer. How many have flown an Embraer airplane? I don't know if Air India, okay. So it's a Brazilian company that has been existing. It used to be a state-owned company, like many Indian companies, big companies were. It has been privatized for, I don't know, 25 years, part of the privatization process in Brazil some time ago. And they produce airplanes. It's an aerospace company. And they, over time after their privatization, they start to concern about being more efficient because the state was not giving them checks to do whatever they wanted to do. And in the 90s, using their existing previous product development system, they develop a new product using their traditional system, a new product. This product here, this problem, there are many families of products, but they can seat from 70 people to 115 people, depending on the configuration. So this is the kind of airplane I'm talking about. And the product was a huge success. It was huge. Well, I don't know if you know the aerospace industry. It's very important to develop right product because it's so time-consuming, and it takes so many years to develop a new airplane that if you don't do it right, it can be a disaster. You can throw a lot of money in the trash if you don't do it properly. So they did a really good job. In spite of the great investment, they were introducing to this market a new product that was smaller than the competition, was very cost effective, low in consumption, and very right, the right time for that product, because it promised point-to-point travel. For middle-sized cities, was very hard to go to a hub. Like if you want to go from here to another town in India, you have to go to Mumbai, and instead of going direct. And this airplane provided point A to point B direct flights because they were smaller and they were cost efficient in terms of fuel efficiency. So that was a very good product. They made a huge mistake. They thought they were going to sell an X amount of airplanes, and actually the demand was 5 times higher. So their planning process, they're trying to understand the market needs. They underestimate the demand for this kind of product. So they were very happy because then there was a huge demand. So you thought, well, this company is going to be doing well because they have much more demand than capacity. Actually, that wasn't the case. Why? They couldn't produce it. They didn't have the capacity to produce it. So when they launched it, many orders, and they couldn't perform. They couldn't deliver. Many delays, many production problems, lots of cost issues, lots of quality issues, lots of rework. So they were really unhappy with the situation. The customers were unhappy because they had bought this product and the company kept postponing the delivery date. Stakeholders were not happy. This company was open to the public, so you can buy shares. And some of the most important shareholders, like some important banks, were not very happy with this because they had the product, they had the orders, customers willing to pay, and no products coming out of this. And then actually the company, they say, company was really struggling. And they called us in 1 month, I think month of June, and say, well, in September, we have a group of investors from Wall Street. And if they see our situation, they are going to tell their shareholders to actually sell Embraer stocks because the company is not going to be doing well with this production problem that they are facing. So the company was in a really tough situation, really struggling, and the survival of the company was an issue at that time, despite the very successful product launch using traditional product development methods. So they started, they called us and they started to do, they work with many different sources of knowledge in order to help to transform the manufacturing. And over a period of 4 or 5 years, they were able to reduce billions in cost, because those are huge operations, you can imagine that. A huge amount of waste eliminated, cost reduction, delays were finally faced, and gradually the company started to work better, and they were able to deliver the products they were promising to their customers, and little by little they were able to improve manufacturing. So there was a need to improve manufacturing, and they did it using the lean concepts. They were very successful. And there was nothing new there, because before Embraer, Boeing had already been doing lean for a number of years, and Airbus also was doing that. So they were kind of late in that game, but still in time to be able to survive. With this kind of initiative, this is the CEO of Embraer. He came to our event in São Paulo a few years ago, and he made a public speech about this, and he said, without lean, we wouldn't be able to be here. If we had continued with our traditional manufacturing processes, the company would not be able to survive without this change in the manufacturing process. So that was the case. The company is doing well today, is growing, but they are not able to compete with Airbus and Boeing. They don't want to. They know to compete with Boeing and Airbus, they are not only going to compete with 2 companies, but with 2 governments and with 2 research and development institutions that are in the States and in Europe. Airbus is a multi-country company and multi-government supported activities. So it's very hard to compete. But in spite of that, they are in a very strong and solid third position in this very competitive, very high-tech, very globalized market. And, but the competition is coming. Bombardier, a Canadian company, they used to be number 3, and now they're number 4. It's a direct competitor of Embraer. They are waking up, so they're going to have a major competition coming. And also, newcomers and competitors from all countries, all segments, all over the place. Pretty soon, I'm expecting to have some Indian companies. Is there any Indian company in this segment? If not, Chinese companies or Japanese companies. Mitsubishi is launching a new executive jet. Honda, Toyota, they're all looking at this market very carefully, and they want to enter this market. So it's going to be, it's already very competitive, and it's going to be much more competitive in the years to come. So they're able to survive with this, but they know it's not enough. So that's why they are taking a new step in their lean journey over this past, and they started manufacturing. When they started doing improvements in manufacturing, very soon they realized the connection between manufacturing and product development was very poor. The kinds of drawings, the kinds of designs they were getting from the product engineers were not proper for the manufacturing. So the interface started to appear as a problematic interface, manufacturing and product development. And gradually they started to do improvements, and now they are in a full-blown journey to radically transform their product development organization. Again, it had been very successful. In the past, they were able to launch very important products, very successful products, but with all the problems that created. So they are in a journey to move from their traditional product development organization to using the same principles, the same thinking that they were using in the manufacturing transformation, they are applying to the product development transformation. And that's not only Embraer's situation. In many companies, product development organization doesn't work properly. It's not very uncommon to have in companies new products beyond the budget, over the budget. Quite often that's the case. Quite often it's the case that the products are late to the market. Quite common to have lots of stress. You know, a new product coming up. Of course, there are companies that launch a new product every day, but that's not the case. For most companies, launch a new product is a big thing, and is also a source of stress most of the time. And the product development process is not for the organization. Somebody mentioned this morning about the silo mentality. You know, product development organization is typically a silo that is very loosely connected with manufacturing, very loosely connected with suppliers. So that's a problem that most organizations have with their product development organization. So, if we can develop a great product development system, we will be able to create great products in a consistent way. Many companies create great products. Embraer was able to create great products. How was that possible? Well, I would say it's partially luck and partially because they had some really good people there. But it's partially luck because the process was not very systematic, thought out, and the internal process were not strong enough. And actually the connections with manufacturing were not good enough. So that's why they launched a successful product, they were not able to manufacture it. So the whole product development system was very weak. And if we do this, we not only create great products, but also we will continue our effort to reduce waste, to reduce costs in the manufacturing process, in the whole company. Because it always starts with a great design. A great design means great connection with the suppliers, great development of manufacturing processes. So that's going to, some people say, depending on the company, a lot of the costs are defined in the design phase. So there is a little you can do by doing Kaizen in the existing process. But there's a lot you can do when you design a new process for a new product. There's a lot you can do in the design phase. So we can, of course, we should continue to improve our existing processes, but we should think more, we should plan better in the design phase of the product development system. So what is a lean product and process development? What do we want to achieve with this? Well, first of all, we want to create great products systematically, not depending on luck, not depending on genius, and reduce cost at the same time. So we develop a system that is much more cost effective. At the same time, we're developing people knowledge, people capabilities. This is going to help integrate the company horizontally, breaking the silo mentality. If we do a great product development process and process development, if you can do the product and the process together, we are going to create a very strong horizontal organization in the company, breaking the silos that really hurts us. And we're going to be able to align everybody, not only the value-adding process, but also all the supporting processes around what the final customer needs, around the product, which actually is what the customer really cares about. So if we can do that, we're going to bring great improvements to the company. We have the main elements of the lean product and process development are in those two books that you can find. There's one at the LEI, a new edition of the lean product and process development by Alan Ward, and the previous book that Jim Morgan, now leading this initiative within LEI and helping the Lean Global Network around this initiative. Those two books are a great source of information for us to get started. And product development is the same or is different? It's the same and it's different. What is the same? The same is the fundamental thinking that drives our efforts in manufacturing or in any part of the company. The fundamental thinking is the same, but the problems are different. So we would expect the process is different. So we should expect the tools, the countermeasures, the solutions are going to be different because the problems and the needs are different. So some of the wastes that Alan Ward identified in his work are very interesting. For example, we have in the product development process lots of hands-off, lots of discontinuations between different parts of activities. There is no flow in the process. Communication barriers, lots of informations that are produced that are not important. So we spend a lot of time generating information that's not necessary. Waiting, lots of waiting, wishful thinking, people being very optimistic about things that they don't know if it's going to work, but they believe it's going to work and it doesn't. So we're going to have a problem. Lots of knowledge that are wasted. We develop knowledge that we throw away in the trash. And tools that are wrongly applied. We are trying to apply some tool that actually is not the tool that you need. So those are typical wastes you have in the product development process. And then you have to understand customer needs. Well, everybody in the marketing area, in the product development area, say, well, we have a way to understand our customer needs. But we need to change that. We need to change that. We should do much more of a Gemba in terms of trying to understand what are the real customer needs. So we have to go and see how the customers are using our products. Doing surveys, doing market research the traditional way is one way of doing it. It's limited. We have to do more of marketing people, product development people should be more Gemba oriented in terms of trying to see what customers' needs really are. And where they have to do that, they have to go and see. They have to observe. They have to be able to understand what the customers are thinking. All the time, you have to work, like John mentioned, no, not today, not today. But all the time, you should think about alternatives. One of the typical problems with the product development process You will start with one definition of the product, and you go all the way. And in the end, that's what the customer wanted. So you have to start all over again. If you start doing multiple alternatives all the way, it's much easier to negotiate internally, to be flexible, and to be able actually to reduce the lead time. So you spend much more time in the beginning by creating alternatives, and in the end, you're going to be reducing your total lead time, because you come up with alternatives that you can negotiate internally, and you can also assess the real market needs with this. A strong internal debate. It's very important to have different opinions right from the beginning, because it's very uncertain. Everything is uncertain here. It's something new. We don't know this product. We never developed this product before. Is this going to be successful? What kind of problems are we going to have? We don't know. So it's very important that you have this very strong debate and alignment within the organization. Otherwise, if you don't have alignment, if you don't have a strong debate, you have a kind of one decision done in the beginning, and if it's wrong decision, it's going to be a long time before you're able to fix it through many, many loops of rework in the product development process. But we cannot rely, like John said, in a democratic process to do that. We need somebody capable of understanding, having a systems view, understanding the needs, capable of listening to everybody, arguing with everybody, capturing all the different ideas, but actually make some definitions about what is the product going to look like from a systemic view. Eliminate the silos within the organization and communicates well with marketing and sales, with suppliers, with the whole organization. And this is chief engineer. I don't know, how many of you read The Machine That Changed the World? The book that was mentioned by John. Well, if you read that book, as John mentioned, there is one chapter about product development, but it's not very comprehensive. You know, at that time, that research was done in the 80s. There was very little we knew about Toyota and other companies in terms of product development. So there's a nice discussion about the chief engineer role, but the other elements of the product development system, we still didn't know. So the book has some ideas about it, but over time, a number of people have been studying more and deepening their understanding of the lean product development system. And also, one important thing is the connection with the company Hoshin. Sometimes the product development organization is so strong that they develop their own plans, their own vision, not fully connected with everybody else, like Embraer did. They did a marvelous job developing a product, but totally disconnected with manufacturing, totally disconnected with the rest of the organization. It can be a disaster. You did well in your job, but your connection with the rest of the organization was not properly done, so it's going to lead to disaster, not to success. You have, like in manufacturing, like in services, like in any kind of a process, you should try to create as much as possible flow, pull, and some kind of a cadence in the product development process. So the same ideas in manufacturing, the same ideas in any processes, you should do in product development. How are you going to create flow? How are you going to create pull? What is pull in product development? You can develop some kind of a pulling events, some parts of the activities in the middle of the process that actually pull the rest. So you know that's a critical date to deliver a package of development, and that's very important. It has to be synchronized. Synchronization is critical in product development, and that has to be done by somebody. The chief engineer is basically this person. Remember, we're talking about a development that is very different than the traditional development. You're talking about different alternatives all the time. So you have to synchronize this, and you have to make decisions at the right time. Jim Morgan wrote a very interesting paper about this, is how Toyota succeeds in product development by deciding very late, deciding at the last moment. Some people don't understand that. Why do you decide at the last moment? You decide at the right moment, not the last moment. What's the right moment? When you have all the information. The later you decide, the more new information comes. To know if you develop a new airplane, it might take 10 years. 10 years. Things change from today when you're going to launch a new product 10 years from today, there's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of developments. So if you don't have this embedded in your process, you lose a lot of opportunities, and your product development process is not going to deliver the results you want to expect. In product development, it's the same thing. Do we have a tech time? Do we have a pace? Do we know that we are late or ahead or behind schedule? We should know this in manufacturing. We should know this in any process. How about in product development? We should have the same type of element to define the pace, how we should work. What is the pace? What is the right pace? So we don't want to be late. We don't want to be late. We have a delivery target. We have a time to deliver a new product. So how we make sure that we are on time is critical for that. Making everything visual. I don't know, Embraer didn't allow me to take some pictures of there. But now at Embraer, in many of the lean companies, the whole process is visual. You go to a big room and you see what's going on real time. You know in every part of an airplane or an automobile, every single element, you know where it is today. And if it's late or not. And if it's late, what kind of a correction you're doing in able to make sure you are going to be on time. So a big room, a little bit like this. So this is how they manage the product development process. They need computers. Sometimes they love computers. But so there's always a fight. And there's also the issue of global organization. They have people, they have engineers all over the place. So how are you going to do this visually at the same time, integrating all the systems, IT systems, all that? But that's fundamental. That's a major change. Because with this kind of a visual management, you connect everybody at the same time. And you don't do a daily meeting or an hourly meeting, but you do a weekly meeting, because the lead times are much longer. So in a week, with a half-an-hour stand-up meeting in the Obeya room, you can do wonders by making sure everybody's synchronized. And if we have problems, and we will have problems, we know how to solve them. And everybody knows what is being done to solve. So we make sure everybody is on track, everybody's following the same pace, the same cadence, everybody work with flow. So, and then what you avoid is muramuri, overburden, and variation. So you have a cadence. You have everybody working according to a tech time. Just like we want to do in manufacturing, just like we want to do in any process in the administrative areas, for example. As I told you, the machine book talks about a lot about this structure. And it's important to have somebody responsible. When everybody is responsible, no one is responsible. If you have the silos responsible, that is an issue. How you're going to coordinate the silos. So you need somebody to overlook the whole system. And that's the chief engineer. That's the responsibility of the chief engineer to make sure everything is flowing according to the plan. And the chief engineer is somebody with a deep knowledge of the functions, but is a typical example of leading without power, leading without authority. The chief engineer has no authority over the functions, but has the responsibility and has the respect of every function, because everybody understands that is supposed to be supporting his work. So he has a very broad responsibility, has a strategic orientation, and he has very little authority over the functions. But he has the respect and the credibility and the knowledge to be respected by everybody. And he has the responsibility to make sure the company needs are supported by this. So you can have a typical matrix organization, but the subtones of this is that you have a strong person, credible, aligning every function, aligning all the people involved. For example, in a car, you have all those functions, technical functions, with deep knowledge in any of those functions, but they have to be coordinated. Otherwise, they don't have a sense of the horizontal system, the horizontal flow that happens here. So the responsibility of the chief engineer is to do that. But more than that, the chief engineer has to be capable of translating customer needs to the organization. And also he's not only responsible for that, but the ultimate financial results, that's his responsibility as well. How profitable is the product? So you stop the blaming game. You know, well, the product was on time, too bad it was too costly, and there was no profit around it. Well, we're late. We have a lot of quality issues, but the design is wonderful. We got a lot of design prizes for this very good-looking product. So you stop the blaming game. Somebody is responsible, and everybody is coordinated by this person with this deep knowledge and full responsibility for the process. Developing learning and knowledge, that's fundamental in the whole organization, not only in product development. Everywhere we want to develop deep knowledge and deep understanding. But for product development organization, this is fundamental. This is their job. But they have to be humble. They have to listen more. We have a lot of product development people that they don't listen. They think they know what the customer needs. They think they know more than the customers. So they don't listen. So they have to listen. They have to go and see for themselves, but with critical eyes, so they can really understand. They have to use the scientific method. They have to do PDCA all the time. All the time. They have a lot of coaching. This is hard in the product development area. We have a lot of egos in product development. Lots of engineers with lots of knowledge. You know, ego management is a big issue there. So accepting somebody to tell you, to coach you to this process sometimes is not so easy to do. And then learn fast, learn fast, learn fast. So those are some of the fundamentals in terms of the organization and the type of leadership we should have in a product development system. Involving suppliers early on, as early as necessary. So many companies in the auto sector and in the aerospace sector, they used to come up, as soon as they have some drawings, they would come up trying to find the suppliers. Now, if you have a trusting relation with suppliers, that changes the relationship between the company and the suppliers. If you trust your suppliers, if you have a long-term view of the suppliers, early on, you capture their knowledge and their capabilities in the process. And that's going to be making a much stronger process. But again, if you involve early on, that presumes that you're going to have a different relationship. So that means purchasing has to be on board. It's not only something that the product development people should do it, but also purchasing should be involved to have a long-term and a trust relationship with your key suppliers. Some of the results are these, and I'm based on Jim Morgan's presentation. This is beginning of this effort. Some companies systematically approaching product development in a different way. And we see some results here in terms of savings, in terms of lead time reduction, in terms of market share improvements. So this is the beginning of a new phase in the lean transformation. I think this is, we create a lot of positive change, a lot of positive impact in manufacturing. If we can do this in product development, the impact in the performance of the company is going to be much, much higher. So this is a great challenge for us. I really invite you to all take this, pay attention to this, take a look at this. And if we can do this properly, that is going to take our companies to a new level of performance, not only in developing products, but in the whole organization. This is going to create a big impact in the whole organization in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jose, for your enlightening presentation. Now, in honor of Jose Arfero, we are doing an important announcement. There is a lean product process development book published by PQP here in India, by our book, Lean Management Institute has published. Every participant and delegate will get a free copy of that. You have to go and sign on the PQP counter, which is shifted to the T area. And you sign and get a free book on lean product and process development, thanks to the presentation by Jose Ferro on that subject. Okay, anybody here would like to have a question with Jose, or you would like to interact?
Person in 27 countries, would you like to throw some light on why these simple commonsensical things do not get done easily and smoothly in the organization? Why is it a struggle, frustration, dissatisfaction to the quality champions in the organizations?
You have 30 years of experience.
No, 20.
20. What is your experience on this?
I am myself relating to this only.
I don't have that many years of experience that you have.
No.
No, well, what is?
I mean,
I'll be glad
people
to.
refuse to listen to the customer. People refuse to talk to the customer. People do not take the voice of the customer seriously once it goes into the organization. The leadership is not committing that much of time as it deserves. Businesses keep losing money on poor quality cost, and yet it's not. The quality profession does not have the seat on the boards. It doesn't have ear of the CEOs. I mean, these are many.
I fully agree with all of them.
So we need your perspective, sir.
Yeah, to be honest, this is a hard question. It seems, but I have kind of a different, slightly different approach to this. This may seem very simple, may seem, in the surface, may seem very simple. I've been a professor for many years, so I used to read a book and say, well, this is so simple, this is so obvious. But it's not. Actually, it challenges our fundamental ways of thinking about things, of doing things. So it's not obvious. It's not as simple as it sounds. It's not as simple as it looks. And why? Because it's totally different than what we do. So it's like John said, it's easier to talk about it. It's harder to really understand and actually do it. So that's my simple experience on this. It's very simple, but it's very hard and very difficult. It's a paradox, apparently. It's not, because it challenges our fundamental ways of doing things, the way we do things, actually. To make sure that people challenges the way of doing things is not so simple. They are used to it. And they learn, we're going to have a panel with the education, they learn the thinking in the university. So you learn at home. So the basic thinking is extremely hard to change because it's very different than the way we think and the way we do things. And so it's easier to talk, it sounds, it looks simple, but it's deeply and profoundly different than what we do and what we really think. Because what we really think is what we do. What we think is what we talk. And we're talking, we're not doing. So thank you. Thank you for your question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sir, 1 minute.
Yes. 1 minute.
Just this thing, you have explained about this broad responsibility with small authorities. Here.
Oh, here, yes.
Yeah. You have mentioned that broad responsibilities with small authorities. Actually, if these authorities are not there, the responsibilities are not getting fulfilled. That is the experience what we face in our organization.
I'm sorry, I don't speak English. English is not my first language. Can you explain a little?
You mentioned about broad responsibilities but small authorities.
Yes.
So generally it happens if you don't have this authorities,
yes,
then the responsibilities are not getting fulfilled.
Well, you have to combine responsibility with authority with credibility. Though you may not have formal authority, but if you have credibility and if your responsibility is clear and everybody is aligned and supporting not you as an individual, but your job, then people are going to be aligning and they're going to be respecting and following as much as possible. So the issue is formal authority is not the most important thing. Is responsibility, and what comes with responsibility is the credibility to actually engage everybody, not in my terms, but in the company survival and sustainable growth. So that translating the needs of the company to the people, that's my job as a leader without authority. So authority is not what is important, but responsibility to deliver what is necessary for the company to survive, and also the credibility. So I listen, I have the knowledge, I'm capable of reaching agreements with everybody. That's what is the most important. Formal authority is not very relevant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One more question, please. In the development stage, you said that there are multiple alternatives they are checking at the same time.
Yes.
So isn't it add more cost to the development process because they are getting more and more alternatives and they have to work on them, and they will have to use more manpower as well, I think.
Yes.
So can you explain how that works in the real environment?
That's true. That's true everywhere in the organization. I think our friends from Capgemini mentioned a little bit about the A3 process. The A3 process, in the development of the A3 process, you should come with alternatives. Coming with alternatives has multiple benefits. For example, it allows people to think outside the box. Because most of the times people think they have one good idea. And most of the time that's okay to have one good idea. But there could be other good ideas, maybe even better ideas that we don't think. So if you force people to think in alternatives, you develop the learning of the person. And quite often you come up with a better alternative than you had before. So this is the benefit of this in the beginning. Also, it facilitates the negotiation because nobody knows for sure what's going to be the outcome. So everybody may have a slightly different idea. So it facilitates the engagement of the people with the proposition, with the need. So it facilitates the negotiation, it facilitates, it helps people to think in different innovative ways. And this is not wasted, because this knowledge in a traditional system is wasted. But if you think in a lean process, this knowledge that is developed is not necessarily wasted. It can be used in a different product, in a different process. In the end, you calculate, if you do the proper calculation, if you think this has been done already, so this is not my idea, there's some research, some data to support that. You spend more time in the beginning, I don't have a chart here to do, you spend more time in the beginning, but then you spend less time in the end with the rework loops and the successful of the product and the process. So that cost that you think it's a cost actually is an investment in developing thinking, in developing knowledge, in developing new ideas, and facilitating the negotiation process. That's hard to measure, this benefit, but it's immense. In terms of lead time reduction and in terms of the solution that you come, it's much more reliable, it's much firm, the solution, than if you come up with one idea in the beginning and in the end you think, well, this is not a really good idea, let's start over again. And you do that over and over again, that's going to be extremely costly. So do the calculation right, you're going to see the difference. And calculate not only in terms of number of hours you use, but the knowledge that you generate.
Do we have time for one more question? Yes.
Quick one.
I'm sorry, I'm just following orders here.
Okay, one question,
I
sir.
know my time is over, but...
Very quick one.
Okay.
What do you think of lean startup?
Yes.
Yes?
What do you think of lean startup?
Lean startup, well, it's a great idea. It's a great idea. We should learn more about it and do more. Yeah.
Okay, my question is, sir, first of all, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm here.
Where are you?
I'm here.
Okay, I see, okay.
Right, it's a great pleasure to be in the same room when you are making this presentation.
It's my pleasure.
So my question is, this is related to lean for product development. Now, as we know, we generally talk about that lean is difficult to implement in the service industry. So my question is basically related to that you see lean, application of lean, especially in IT area, in IT, information technology area, especially for product development. Is this similar to what is required in the manufacturing industry, or something differently needs to be done for IT product development as such? Just wanted to understand your take on this.
As I said, it's very different and it's very the same. It's the same, but it's different. What is the same? Is the philosophy, the mentality, the way of thinking. What is unique? The processes are unique. The problems are unique. So we have to come up with specific solutions to the problems that we have in this type of activity. This is not the same as manufacturing. So we have to come up, understand what are the needs for this kind of activities, and then come up with the right solutions and the right tools. They are not the same. The tools and solutions are not the same because the problems are different. The needs are different. But the fundamental way of thinking is the same.
Okay. Right, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jose, for clarifying a lot of doubts. Now I request Mr. Jitendra Agarwal, who is from SD Life Standard, SDFC Standard Life Insurance Company.
Good to see a lot of excitement post-lunch with so many questions coming up. So thanks for setting the stage, because I actually consider myself really fortunate that the slot which I am getting in this summit is a very unique slot. Nobody has got in the past this slot, nor anybody who will be the succeeding speakers will be getting this slot. Because this slot is really a reflective phase, which I call as a meditative phase for all of us. And as a quality practitioners, we have been talking about, we have been emphasizing at our workplace that reflect. So I think this is an opportunity for all of you to really reflect, get into a deep seeping of some of those lean thinking, while we will be actually trying to really apply and share how the lean thinking has been really applied in service industries at large and insurance in particular. Now, generally when we talk about story, that's how we have really grown as a child. And story format is actually a universal way of getting into a deep trance or a deep sleep kind of mode. So it's a very deadly kind of a combination which is there in front of me, that there is a time which is post lunch, and then it's a story sharing kind of a format. So let's see what is that we can do best in that scenario. So only thing which happens in my experience is possibly the number of questions which comes reduces, but since I am seeing that all of us are very excited and are looking forward for learning, let's build this entire momentum. So experience shows that when we get into possibly a sleep mode, we lose the conclusion part of it. So let me begin with end in mind and share the story, the conclusion, so that we possibly do not miss out and we get the complete learning. So here we are going to talk about how in service industry some of those opportunities which are there on hand and some of the initiatives which we are taking up are built up at a fundamental level and addressing on some of those concepts of TQM, concepts of lean, concepts of Six Sigma, and is actually helping creating a kind of a change or an impact in the organization. So quickly, what we will do in the available time, we will talk about and understand service industry in general, insurance in particular in terms of its landscape and imperatives. Try to really deep dive. The real essence of excellence is actually lying on the ability to create an execution, and how daily management as a concept is actually being applied or can be applied in our workplace in the service perspective. What are the other allied initiatives and opportunities which are there on our hand, and how we are leveraging, and what kind of results so far we have got as an organization and we are taking forward, and what are a few of the learnings which we can really share in this forum. So before we really talk about improvement approaches as applicable to service industry, I think we need to be really banking upon and understand how the quality practices and quality concepts have evolved in manufacturing, and what are the learnings which are available, and in what kind of a learning cycles, rather than the evolution of last 3 decades which have happened in manufacturing, can be really imbibed much faster in the service context. In the service context, let's understand what a few of the ground realities, the dynamisms, and how the adaptability need to be brought in, and particularly in the context of insurance industry, how that particularly need to be really customized and built. So that's the large part of the discussion. So let's build this understanding. So each of us know how the evolution of quality has taken place in manufacturing. So with my limited understanding, we started largely with an ISO framework, US 9000 implementation, rounds of quality circle initiatives, total team involvement in the formats of Kaizen projects or small group involvement activities, application of quality tools, then lean based or a Six Sigma based project intervention and specific pockets of metrics improvement. So that's one journey which has taken place. Beyond that, people thought that it's not only project by project method, we need to be really making it relevant to the business processes, and that's where business planning as an entity has been emphasized with the performance management with the use of a balanced scorecard kind of an approach, and over a period we have refined and built that concepts of policy deployment, daily management and PDCA cycles kind of thing. Later, their entire adoption of quality practices in the business cycle and the entire business processes have been looked with the business excellence model, which is EFQM, Malcolm Baldrige or a Deming, which is adopted or made available in the country through CII exams and IMC, RB and QA. And there are great stories and inspirational stories in the country that we are not only having many companies who are Deming winning, they are grand prize winning, and they are excelling, but they are still having a journey to really build this and fine tune their journey of TQM, TPM, and then trying to really redefine some of those levels and the benchmarks for world class, and extending these practices for sustainability, extending the practices at the community level. So that's the kind of a learning toolkit which is available at a manufacturing. Now, how much of that is to be really applied, is to be understood in the context of service. So while we understand service, we see that there is it's a growing sector, it's a fast emerging kind of sector, with 60% of the GDP in that space. Large part of the employment base is getting into the service part of it. The half of the funds in the country is flowing into that space. While we really see the depth and the width of service industry, it varies from an organization which may be 2 months old to maybe an institution which may be 200-year-old, spreading into various sectors which can be retail, ITES, telecom, banking, insurance, and many more. So there is a huge diversity of the space in the service organization. Within service, when we really try to reflect on what kind of practices are prevailing and what kind of things, so we largely see that there are pockets in which many of those Six Sigma or lean projects as a standalone practices are showcased, and they are creating that kind of a result. But in a holistic manner, what a few of the quality concepts are applied in totality, possibly there are few to really count at this stage. So what we see is, and reflect upon it, the reason comes out that maybe the appetite to adopt some of these best practices and take a quality way is a little weak. The zone of tolerance and the reflection on experimenting or the business models are actually more common sensual or actually evolving based on their own survival rules and measure of successes. So as a result of which, in the service space, when we try to really see that there is an opportunity and there is a huge diversity and there is no common driver coming in, let's have a little understanding of landscape of insurance in particular. So when we get into insurance in India, we find that there is a big daddy, which is Life Insurance Corporation of India, started in 1956. So they hold at this point of time 70% of the market share. And over a period of last 14 years, 13-14 years since privatization, there are 24 players which have come in. So obviously this industry has become a red ocean. Each of these players are the market leaders in their own respective countries, and they have been holding the large market share there. and they are possibly satisfying themselves with maybe less than 1% or 1.5%. So one can understand the kind of a market pressure, the sales practices, and many behaviors which will be coming out, which may be healthy and may not be healthy as we go along. At the same time, there are investments taking place only through some parent company in the country. So there is a 74%, 26% kind of a investment which is there as a ratio, and you will find that most of the parents and the partner companies, they bring, because they are the rich companies, they are there for long, they have their own ethos, they have their own practices, they have their own processes. So obviously in the midst of these challenges, bringing in a common denominator and bringing in a quality practice and a quality way of thinking is becoming a yet another dimension, and that's create a new dimension of challenge. But if we really look into what are the other complications and the challenges of insurance industry, the other way to really look into insurance is nothing but a very hybrid or a complex kind of industry. And if we really reflect from some of those known industries which we associate with, it's a factory. In terms of managing the volume of transactions, in terms of the way the customer base is, the kind of a policy servicing or a new business enrollment need to be taking place. So the entire concept of manufacturing, the way we are doing it, it's similar to that in terms of insurance. The entire of the front end is actually a replica of the retail. In terms of sales to a service process taking place, which is a physical infrastructure which is creating a sales as well as the service enablement. Then the entire of the back end is an opportunity of making a digital footprint of applying and serving the customer in the entire customer life cycle. And then comes very, very specific niche space, which is a space in insurance, maybe an actuarial or an underwriting, maybe in a banking industry, it will be a treasury or a credit kind of a function, or maybe in a fund management company, it will be an investment kind of thing. So what we see is a service, and as an industry by itself is a hybrid of many more industries in terms of the type of business processes. Now this by itself is an opportunity as well as a challenge. Now the opportunity here is whatever has worked in manufacturing and is working in other industry can be really adopted, can be really applied, can be extended, and at the same time applying that is always a challenge, and that's where the real challenge. So the question comes in here, can we simply apply it? Obviously the response is no. I think throughout the morning discussion we are talking about there is a lean thinking, but where is the lean action? So obviously we need to be really thinking of how to apply it, and obviously there are various approaches to look into, but if we really create a transition, somewhere we need to be reflective of simplifying it and then appropriately applying to our business needs. Another way of really looking into the same thing, I'm here talking from my experiences of last 23 years working in various industries to relate with. So large part of the manufacturing practices and quality practices we have really learned and understood from automobile industry. So whatever happened and experimented there has actually become a learning for us. But we really, if you look into each of these industries, in the other boxes are where probably I have worked. So first 10 years in manufacturing and the last 13 years I have been in the service industry, worked in retail, ITES, bank, and now currently in insurance in last 3 years. So if we really try to connect these dots and understand this industry, there are 3 things which are coming out very clearly. Those points which have been marked here in red, if you can see, are something which is unique to that industry, which is done differently, distinctly, and that is unique to that particular industry. Those which are in actually blue, you will find that they are equivalent of a factory or a manufacturing unit. They may be having a different nomenclature and the terminologies as applicable to each of those industry. Like in manufacturing we say factory or you say plants, whereas in maybe in service industry, particularly in bank and insurance, we call this as a hub, we call it as a central processing units, operation units, and so on. So those are the second blocks. And the third is the set of enabling business processes which are common in any industry. Now this is something which is a very interesting understanding and a revolution. If we understand this, obviously we will be in a position to really say what will be directly implanted, what are few of the things which we need to be adopting by simplifying it, and which are few of the things which we possibly need to be prioritizing and taking in phases kind of thing. Now let's have a little deep dive of insurance in particular, having now got a larger perspective. So when we talk about insurance, insurance is made up of 5 basic core processes. So there is a core process of product development, there is a process of sales, which is new business, then getting into a life cycle customer policy servicing, then getting into the customer retention and renewal and persistency kind of a process, and then the last part of the process, which is the claim and the payout kind of thing. That's the core to insurance industry. Rest all the other processes, we will find they are enabling in nature, and they are there in many other industries and across organizations, which is people management, audit processes, finance management, technology management, change management, and so on kind of things. The terminologies and the phrases may be different depending upon the organization, but this is how we are having the business processes. Now the complexities and the challenges which are posed particularly in the insurance industry, which is important for us to really talk in the relevance of applying these quality concepts, that it's a very, very regulated industry. It's an industry which has got huge technology or legacy systems in place. So just to give you a context, in last 14 years, there are 42 IT systems which are there, which are running and creating an application and making a service to customers. This organization is obviously, this industry is a customer centric. We are talking about 30 lakhs customer base at this point of time. It's a people centric, an employee base of 14,000 people in our own company. We are talking about transactions of huge nature at a new business stage, at a policy servicing stages, at a payout stages taking place. And it's a sales channel which is diversified from an individual sales agent to an institutions which can be a banker or a broker kind of a thing. So there are multiple channels, and they are spread in geography, so they are operating from multiple locations. So these are few of the things which actually creates huge complexities and challenges. More than that, there is a sensitive part. We are managing the customers' money. So we have an AUM at this point of time, which is 40,000 crore kind of number, and in order to really manage that risk of that customer, there is the entire business is actually running with its own complexity. Now, what is the learning for us as a quality professionals? So while we really look into some of these complexity, the other way to really look into this entire business and business processes is that the entire business can be classified into 3 languages. Are there CTQs, are there CTBs, and CTR? Critical to customer, critical to business, and critical to risk. So if this is the kind of output which is possible for any of those business processes, then as a quality professional, we get a confidence that we will be in a position to make this quality practice applied as appropriate to our business. So only 4 things which are required. One is a larger strategic framework. Other is a mindset of excellence, a foundation of assurance, and then maybe a service differentiation kind of a practice which need to be brought in. So with those 4 things in mind, and with the toolkit of quality professional, we can really apply these quality concepts in insurance. So how some of these concepts have been internalized, how they have been reflected, holistically built upon as relevant to insurance industry is what we are going to talk about. Before I really jump upon maybe a small slide for us to have a common understanding, what is driving HDFC Life for our excellence journey to really take place. So obviously it's a 2 big partners coming together with a lineage of more than 226 years, supported with a strong vision of the company. HDFC stands by itself as a symbol of integrity, supported with a strong core values and the strategic theme, which is in the areas of 5 things which have been put in here. So these are something which is actually in the backdrop, which is creating the foundation for excellence in the organization. And to support that vision which we have to be the leader and set the standards, year on year, those are the things which are getting manifested as a part of a result, as a part of our practice, as a part of our outcome. At this point of time, we are talking about taking a conscious approach towards excellence. At the same time, we wanted to really have an acceleration of that. So we have tried to blend this acceleration and excellence together, and have introduced this term called accelerate. So that's the kind of a journey which we wanted to take it. So if a manufacturing organization has taken 30 years to really get to that level of maturity and practices, possibly we would like to get into 3 years. And that's the journey, particularly in HDFC Life, in last 3 years we have tried to build in. And we are trying to create those kind of a foundation which is creating the fit for future. So here I am talking about how this excellence is actually built. What is the quest of excellence at HDFC Life and HDFC way of thinking? So what we are saying in a very holistic way, as we earlier spoke about it, at a foundation level, there has to be a bedrock of strong business processes and team operating practices. That's what is an assurance part of it. Having set the foundation right, then we are talking about creating a improvement in those processes by tweaking that kind of a process with the interventions of initiatives and projects. That's where the game changer projects and cross-functional initiatives comes in the picture, to create unique value to all these stakeholders. And then we are talking about creating a difference to each of those customers as n is equal to 1. And in that context, obviously we know from our experiences that while the transactions are getting delivered, what we fail in most of the time is actually handling the exception situations. So how can the flexibility in the approach can be brought in by the person in understanding the customer need and actually making a difference to that customer at that moment by calling that as a magic. So this entire element of C, service excellence and assurance, is something which is actually the approach which we are trying to really take, and it is centered around the theme, the strategic theme of the organization, which is wired well with the metrics and the dashboards and the review mechanisms, and they are getting tweaked and enhanced from time to time with various value innovations and interventions of that nature. Now, what is there in our hand to make that thing happen? It has to be a circle of influence, and that is the capability building, adding that kind of a value at the process level through projects for that customer, and creating the process enhancement. And that is obviously taking place not very easily. Each of us are knowing the Swan syndrome. So there is a push-pull kind of a mechanism which is taking place, and there is an ongoing communication which is enveloping this entire approach in a holistic way to make this quest happen. So here today I am going to talk about how particularly daily management as an approach to make that excellence is actually deployed in HDFC Life. So each of us, all of us know that there is a daily management, cross-functional management, and PD are the three approaches which are available. The scope of our discussion today is how daily management. So I'm getting into a very specific sharing of in a very holistic way. From my experiences, I've seen that there are organizations where projects have taken a good journey, and there are good successful project journeys taking place. There are organizations who are very, very financially controlled driven, so they have a strong business processes. They are missing on some many other things. So how to really create a balance and translate a daily management as an approach, the way we have a culture or a ritual or a drive in manufacturing, applying into the service space in the financial sector. So this is the kind of a simple model. Each of us are aware about this model. We are at the base level. We are talking about people with an accountability of the workplace and the process they are holding. And the processes which need to be defined need to be really standard and standardized, and that's the bedrock kind of thing. So the ownership of on the process and having a foundation of the process is the starting point. The way we have approached it, we have created a robust BPM and BPM next kind of initiative. I'll talk about each of those things and to give you a more detail about it. Then daily control is something where there is a layers of audits and assessments. So typically in many organizations when you start, there will be an internal audit, there will be external audit. But there are various fabric of assessments which are required. They are value creating for that touch point, for that from the customer's point of view, which is missing. And how that is being actually woven is something to address that item 3. Item 4 is from those control, creates a trigger for improvement, and then how to really go about creating an improvement also calls for a structured thinking process, a systematic thinking process. And that's where that approach of different project types, culture of RCA, and corrective and preventive action, CAPA, is something which we are wiring. Now, while a project is on a specific theme, there is a large part of the business process which is running through a series of metrics, and that need to be really managed, that need to be really understood. And that's where the thought process of managing from the gut versus managing from the data comes in. And that is getting wired through a dashboard kind of an approach, with a distinction that each of those dashboards have a YX kind of a relationship. That means we have a causal relationship established. What is the output and what is the process and input variant, and that's the way the dashboards are designed. Across organization, we find that there is a big data kind of a concern, questions and opportunities spoken about. But actually, when you get into many of us can relate with, the data is actually not available which is relevant to my project. And that's where this kind of a fabric is going to create an ongoing need for better controls, better reviews, better triggers for improvement. And then we are actually adding this element of daily work, which is talking about wiring this entire thing into a softer dimension of the organization, which is the values of the organization and the team operating behavior, to make that thing happen. So these are the 6 things on which that entire daily management has been worked out. So now quickly, I will try to give you a little experience and share what are few of the challenges, what are few of the journey and distinction which we have tried to customize and build, and what kind of results which we have got, and what is the way ahead. So this is one slide each to really address some of these areas. So addressing 1 and 2, which is the foundation of business processes, and I am sure all of you will relate with the challenges which you are talking about. Customer is forgotten, it is silo based, function driven, that's how document is incomplete, it is not having a wing to wing view or an end to end kind of perspective. And obviously whatever is there is actually there in the mind, it is and whatever is there in the mind in terms of its compliance is also weak, given the huge iteration and huge flux in the people. So those are the challenges. Now if those are the challenges, what is the first thing which we have done? And my colleague Matilda is here, she can really relate with. 3 years back when we started this entire journey, ownership of the business process is something which was not there. There was passing the buck kind of a scenario. So we are talking about defining the business processes and establishing the ownership and introducing these terms like value chain and value stream. Introducing that entities like process owners and subject matter experts, and trying to create a capability around it and make as a backbone to make that thing really happen as an ongoing exercise. We are talking about how to really create a documentation of business processes. So some of those elements of addressing the SIPOCs, cross-functional process mapping, FMEA as an element, and talking about some of those exceptional situations which is actually getting broken and how to respond to that, how the escalation should be done, who will be handling what in that kind of a scenario as a format, as an approach for making a process document. And those process document then becomes a reality. As a result of it, then we are trying to really look into the business processes in terms of its severities. Not every processes are critical. Not every processes need to be really looked in for 100% perfection. So severities and then the compliance levels. What is the outcome? At this point of time in the organization, we know that for addressing the core business processes and the enabling processes, we have got 284 business processes. Now we have a distinct number on hand. Now something can be worked upon it. We can still get into an improvement. Now those documents are addressing those aspects which we spoke about in terms of standard. There is a battery of 100 people who are created to really work around this entire thing, and they are going to take that. The continued suitability of a process is looked in with a clear frequency of its renewal and revisit. 9 months, 12 months, 15 months, depending upon the severity of the process. Then we are talking about at any point of time, now how many processes are there which are actually getting delayed or not getting into signed off. So from an ad hoc stage or having no measurement, at least we know that these many processes at this point of time, which is in single digit, is awaiting sign off, which need to be looked into. Now, as a result of this foundation, obviously there is an improvement in performance, compliances, drive, reportings, and all those kind of things. So one can tangibly see it. And corresponding to that, all the change management. So the reactive changes are now becoming proactive change, and the change management framework is active. Taking this journey forward, we are saying, yeah, now we have something which is a base document in a physical format. We need to really make it in an agile format, little more efficient, ready for future. And in that context, we are trying to really deploy the world best tool available, which is ARIS at this point of time, and strengthening the checklist metrics and risk management. So this is one example of the foundation of daily management on the ownership and BSE. These are a few of the examples how the journey started in 2011, the testimony and some of the results. Getting to the second one. Now again, you will be in a position to relate that customers are always forgotten. Now in somewhere people also remember customer as Kast Kar or Mar is the person who is called customer, right? So that's the state when we talk about customer at each of the touch points. Now in the organization there are various reviews and various audits which are done, but who is giving an assurance? That's the real challenge, and nobody really is sure of that if the problem has occurred, whether it will be repeating or not. So obviously when we talk about risk these days, the risk at an organization level but not at a process level, and then we have various responses to the risk which is there, but the mitigation plan is really weak. So some of the initiatives which we have taken here is that FME has made integral part of each and every business process. So as a result of which, we know what is the risk, what is the mitigation plan around it in a very, very objective manner. Now we have very innovatively come, this is unique to HDFC and maybe a response to service industry. For each of the touch point, we have a comprehensive assessment framework which is called service delivery assessment. Now it is based on output, process and input, all the parameters, and that is getting assessed on a periodicity. For the first time, there is an integration of audit and assessment framework done, just to give you an address that yes, this is an assurance which we are trying to really build into. And then we are talking about another maturity based model which is called an ARR, and I'll give you a glimpses of that. So what has happened because of that? So obviously when they are getting implemented, RAG becomes a kind of a practice, and we find that the improvement projects get a logical extension and a trigger kind of thing. Now the results are, today there are X number of processes, specific touch points. When we say touch points, just for all of us to understand, like me, branch is one touch point, grievance is another touch point, claim handling is another touch point. So from the customer's point of view, what matters as a thing are the touch points which are getting addressed. There are concurrent audit and self-assessment kind of a culture which is getting into. Before an assessment done by an independent function, let me really introduce and internalize these input parameters, process parameters and output parameter as a self-assessment. So that's the logical. So building quality at source is coming in. Then we are talking about, based on this entire thing, we are having parameters which is CTQ, CTR, CTB kind of thing. And based on that, the triggers for improvement coming out. So 65 odd projects have been implemented last year. We know which are those critical metrics on which the improvement should take place. Targets get defined, the variance are getting measured, and then we start looking into that. We are still in the journey, long way to go, applying 4-student model for action planning, making a managing point and checkpoint kind of an approach, specific intervention for metrics improvement, and so on, and trying to really make the processes matured to that kind of a journey with an ARR framework. Now these are a few of the glimpses which we can, obviously it is a very comprehensive, at the same time very detailed thing for my industry. So you may not get the complete understanding, but what I am trying to really bring in, it is a SIPOC thinking which has been brought into the assessment framework. So it becomes more robust for me. So if a process has gone through the check of output, process and input, so then it gives an assurance to me that yes, this process is running, and the less likelihood of a failure taking place. So I spoke about that CTQ, CTR, CTB kind of thing. Based on those, certain practices and triggers are coming out, and at this point of time we are talking about creating global best practices for ourselves. So I think in the morning there was some study was talking about in manufacturing inventory management and addressing of thing with the around the stores. So we have a practice which is called a store as a cash box. Now there are, in each of the branches there is a physical inventory of various items. Now we are trying to really look into how to really manage them like a wallet, because it's the money which is lying into the thing. So the rules for FIFO, the rules for ABC, the rules for store organization and the Kanban kind of thing are becoming a kind of a practices adopted in our business relevance. And this is the model which is based on the maturity continuum, understanding of COPQ, understanding of CMM model. We are trying to really adopt and apply the levels at which our business processes are. And we gauge our processes, and at this point of time we identify that processes are at a defining stages. We spoke about it, and to some extent they are in the control phases. Long way to go before we can call that the processes are predictable. So that's the kind of a comprehensive model which we have created. Similarly, I think this is the Ghar Ghar Ki Kahani, project management. So when we talk about daily work improvement, there are various types of projects which are coming our way, and there is always a fight between what is business as usual versus what is push and pull which is going to take place. So there are pockets in which some kind of a improvement take place, but they are not necessarily long lasting. Sustenance as a mechanism or replication as a mechanism is never emphasized or is weak. So here we have a quest model which we spoke about it, which addresses the aspect of TEI, total employee involvement, and total waste elimination. That's how the TQM model has been based. The learning of TQM from the perspective of zero defect and waste has been embedded. So we'll just talk about it. And the involvement of people spread in various geographies. So there is a ZBC, that is a zonal business review, and regional business councils which are taking place. So where the people are coming together and they are building upon the initiatives and taking that thing. The entire concept of PDCA is also simplified and trying to really make more English for people to understand. So we are saying that the opportunity is to be looked into from a see, do and get kind of a cycle, and I will talk about what it is and how it operates. Then the whole process of types of projects are strategic initiative, impact projects, wow projects and Eureka projects is a customization to the problem solving, the task achieving and the maintenance implementing measure kind of category of projects which we understand in a TQM parlance has been brought in. Now in order to really bring the zone of tolerance of the people and really have the right stakeholder engagement, the language which we have brought in is called QNI, quality net income. So each of these projects are done with a purpose to create a value to the organization, and the value is measured in the dollar term. It is measured in rupees, which is QNI. There is a change management process, there is a capability process, there is a recognition process, and all those enabling processes are there to create success of that, and we are just improving upon it. What is the outcome of that? At this point of time in last 3 years, very early stages, more than 550 projects have been delivered. A QNI of 60 crore has been brought into the kitty. These are the CFO signed off figures. 800 odd people have been directly involved either as a project leader or as a sponsor and as a member into that. There are trained resources who are called impact practitioners, 75 people in the system. And across the organization, at least everybody has got an experience of working on one cross-functional project. And then there are functions where there are more projects which are coming in. We have created 12 global practices, and all those projects last to last year which have been put in, they have been put into the rigor of sustenance and replication. So 95% of the projects are in the sustenance mode. That means the control phase and all those metrics is working. And there is a specific emphasis of timely closure of the projects. So depending upon the type and nature and complexity of the project, there are 7-day just do kind of project, there are 30-day project, there are 60 days and 90 days kind of a process. And then we are taking the next journey of really getting into a breakthrough improvement and taking a formal journey of world-class organization. Now these are few of the learnings and adoption as relevant to our industry. So I spoke about, we have created our own project management pyramid, PMP. So there is a strategic initiative which is at the top level, impact level at a functional level which is cross-functional in nature, high value creating. The term by itself communicates. WOW is war on waste projects, and then Eureka projects at the foundation level where the frontline people are getting involved and they are driving the changes. And the drive here is see, do and get kind of thing. Now this is a very interesting slide, and that's the genesis of the seed of the way the growth take place. So we are saying that for grassroots opportunities at work to take place, what is important is that you need to be seeing that opportunity. And the seeing that opportunity is coming out from the 8 window of waste. So we have classified and defined the waste applicable in service industry in the language of omit what you do. So over processing, over production, motion, inventory, transportation, weight. But more than that, I think in the service industry, the underutilization of resources, unclear communication, opportunity lost is something which is a very, very important part. Rest all the other elements are largely known in manufacturing and we understand as a waste. Having seen the waste in that form, we need to be really quantifying as a relevant metrics. And that's where the quest as a model comes in. Nothing less than 0 is to be accepted. And that's where we try to really look into what is the leakage, what is the complaint, what is the setup time, what is the non-conformity, and anything and everything should be getting close to a single digit, getting into the 0 from the current level. And that's having seen the opportunity from that point of view, obviously the next logical action is a do. And that do action is depending upon the degree of initiative a person takes. Now there are people of different nature and their ability to take initiatives are varying. So there would be a person at a grassroots level, he'll say that okay, it does not matter, it is a business as usual. He does not question the status quo, he lives with that kind of thing. So he sees an opportunity but he does not do anything. Is a level 0 level of initiative versus a set of person who is saying that yeah, I have a suggestion, I have an idea, I have a problem and let's do something about it. And he try to really work in the fabric and improve this entire journey by working with that. And that's where you can see that there is a eureka, there is a wow, there is a impact and a SI kind of thing which is taking place. So depending upon the degree of complexity of the projects, the journey is really moving upward. And obviously if you are doing something in a structured problem solving approach, you get it. What is that you get? You get a specific improvement in that matrix, you get a Q&I, you get a story, a problem solving, showcase, and so on. And that's the seeding of the grow take place. So the most important part of the grow is basically seeding it. Before that, just addressing that YX and the culture part of it, which is coming out again in the similar format, how many people are trained and how the fabric of culture building is taking place. So this is the way the dashboards are getting created. So metrics are getting identified based on the CSAT metrics, based on the queries, request and the complaint, based on the complaints. Broken processes are getting identified, classifying them, looking into a classical equation, y is equal to function of x's and working on those x's so that those y's are actually manageable. These are all the other tool enabled reports and integrations which are taking place. So this is the slide I was talking about. This is a summary which actually talks about how the entire concept has been translated and is working for us. So this is one part of the exercise. There are many more initiatives which are there. But what I wanted to really talk about is that all the initiatives which are getting identified under the banner of excellence are being evaluated from the strategic theme and its impact to the vision. And in terms of a relevance to the organization, and there is this clear quantification which is getting established. So that's the way we are trying to take relevant initiatives which actually booster or add to the excellence of the organization. To make that TWE is to be compounded with a capability. I think in the morning we have enough discussion on that in terms of the balance. So there are various engagement exercises which are done. I think Capgemini, we had a wonderful experience of how they have really tried to do that. So it's like putting CDAC board in action, having a participation of the people, getting the hurdles done, creating a celebration and all those kind of things. These are a few of the results which we already spoke in the respective slides, but just to emphasize that there is, yes, a tangible saving year on year coming out. There is an emphasis on the timely closure of the projects, and then we are talking about the cross-breeding and creating a critical mass and penetration. These are few of the sharing which has taken place in the outside domain, where we have got recognition for all those efforts and the papers and the projects which we have delivered. Now what we spoke about is a small dot in the larger journey of excellence which we have picked up. So last 3 years which we started since my joining the organization, the first win was to get an IMC performance award. The next was RBNQ trophy, and year on year we are building the next level of challenges like a Q&I as a tangible measure, which is getting into an equivalent to a budget of the department, so that we are saying that we are a cost neutral department. We create a value and we are not just talking about some of those things which are English. So that's the way we try to really talk the language of business. So from 2x to 3x kind of a number. And now we are talking about that we will be working only on pull-based projects, which are clearly breakthrough in nature. We will be working formally on the world-class organization. And to best of my understanding, at this point of time in the services space, not many organization or any organization is actually thinking of challenging Deming. And that's the formal journey which we are trying to embark upon. And the process is on, and the journey is in front of you. So in a nutshell, what I am talking about is the toolkit is available, the know-how is available, the challenge is in front of us. How can we really make it relevant, simplify it, apply it, create a rapid learning cycle, continuously renewing it, making it sustainable and make it happen. And without getting into too much of tool, the simple thought process of holistic understanding of those things begins with see, do, and get, and create our own standard practices and standards. So that's the way we are getting into. That's the journey so far. We are possibly one step taken forward in the right direction. Long way to go. But what is keeping us propelling is the eagle's eye view level of detail versus the next level of detail, which is a worm's view. Combining them together is actually making our excellent journey really take in the positive directions. So that's it from my side. Thank you for giving this opportunity, for sharing this.
Jitendra, and any questions that people would like to ask him? Okay, friends, we have a tea break now, and you can interact with him quite well during tea time. And we are just 15 minutes late. Give a momentum to Jitendra. I'm sorry, I just because of delay. Yeah. I'm really sorry for. Just